Hi everyone, sorry a few minutes late. Leanne had some issues doing updates for Zoom and stuff like that. So anyway, here we are now. So I don't know if we've lost a few minutes or whether it'll go a bit later. See how we go. Let's do the chanting. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Buddham saranam gacchami, Dhammam saranam gacchami, Sangham saranam gacchami, Dudiyambi Buddham saranam gacchami, Dudiyambi Dhammam saranam gacchami, Dudiyambi Sangham saranam gacchami, Tadiyambi Buddham saranam gacchami, Tadiyambi Dhammam saranam gacchami, Tadiyambi Sangham saranam gacchami. Namo Buddhaya, Namo Dharmaya, Namo Sanghaya. Namo Buddhaya, Namo Dharmaya, Namo Sanghaya. Namo Buddhaya, Namo Dharmaya, Namo Sanghaya. I take refuge until I am enlightened in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. Through the positive potential I create by practicing the six paramitas, may I soon attain enlightenment in order to benefit all sentient beings. I take refuge until I am enlightened in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. Through the positive potential I create by practicing the six paramitas, may I soon attain enlightenment in order to benefit all sentient beings. I take refuge until I am enlightened in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. Through the positive potential I create by practicing the six paramitas, may I soon attain enlightenment in order to benefit all sentient beings. May all sentient beings have happiness and its causes. May they be free from suffering and its causes. May they never be parted from the happiness beyond suffering. May they abide in equanimity, free of bias, attachment to the near, and aversion from the far. I shall cause this great compassionate Buddha please inspire me to be able to do so. Reverently I prostrate with my body, speech, and mind, and present clouds of every types of offerings, actual and mentally transformed. I confess all of my negative actions accumulated since beginningless time, and rejoice in all the virtues of all holy and ordinary beings. Please remain until cyclic existence ends, and turn the wheel of Dharma for all sentient beings. I dedicate the virtues of myself and others to the great enlightenment. However innumerable all sentient beings are, I vow to save them all. However inexhaustible my delusions are, I vow to extinguish them all. However immeasurable the Dharma teachings are, I vow to master them all. However endless the Buddha's way is, I vow to follow it completely. Om Mani Padme Hum. Om Mani Padme Hum. Om Mani Padme Hum. Tayata Gati Gati Paragati Parasamgati Bodhisoha. Tayata gati gati parasamgati bodhisoha. Tayata gati gati parasamgati bodhisoha. So now get yourself ready for some meditation. Nice comfortable position for yourself. And gently closing the eyes, lips gently touching, tongue resting on the upper palate in the mouth. If you're sitting upright, make sure you're not slouching forward or sort of too much rigidity. I think that's a word in the shoulders. Nice and balanced. And if you have to recline, that's fine. Keep your mind upright, as I always say. And bring the mind inside the body and release the tension from the tips of the toes all the way up to your shoulders, down to the tips of your fingers, and then up to the top of your head. Take a few moments to do this now. You've done it. Then you can scan your body once more briefly to see if there's anything left over that you can release. And when you are ready, bring your focus, or another way to put it is to place your mind onto the feeling of the breath as you breathe in and breathe out. Breathing in your nose, so focusing on the tip of your nose initially, then follow the feeling of the breath past the chest area, down into the lungs, and then back out again. If thoughts arise or any mental activity arises, don't cling to it or grasp at it or even try to force it away or deny it. But simply let it go by replacing your mind onto your breath. And if your mind starts to become dull or sleepy, then replace your mind onto your breath more brightly. You can also add the extra technique of counting the breaths from 1 to 10. 1 in-breath, 1 out-breath is 1, and so on. But if you get distracted on the way towards 10, then go back to 1 at that time. So let's practice like this in silence for a little bit. Now we can feel pleased with ourselves for engaging in the short session of breath meditation so far. And now let's switch techniques. Before we do loving kindness meditation, I think we do again the forgiveness meditation. I know we did that maybe a month or two ago, and we've done it in the past as well, but not for quite some time. So often it is like a precursor, you could say, for the loving kindness meditation, to let go of the mental baggage before we extend the loving kindness. Maybe that's one easy way to put it. So what we're going to do now is use visualization. Just be with yourself. You can just sit with yourself, or you can imagine yourself in front of yourself. Visualize yourself. Or you can utilize, say, looking in a mirror or something like that. Up to you. So be with ourselves right now. Extend friendship to yourself. And to be honest to yourself. Admit anything that's in the past, up to the present, that you may have done that you feel you shouldn't have done, or that you didn't do that you feel that you should have. And apologize to yourself. You can say something in your mind like, I am sorry for not engaging in the things I should have engaged in the past, and also for those things I should have done that I didn't do, shouldn't have done that I did do. Please forgive me. And now you can answer yourself. Thank you very much for apologizing for those things that you did or didn't do in the past. I do forgive you. Now I am free to move on into the future without any mental baggage. And now you can switch to visualizing someone in front of you that you may have hurt in the past, may have brought some harm to them in the past. And you say to them in your mind, I apologize from the depth of my heart for the things or bringing you harm in the past. Please forgive me. And they look at you with a kindness, kind look, and they say, thank you for apologizing for the harm you brought me in the past. I do forgive you. We are now free to move forward in our lives without carrying this mental baggage. And now you can visualize someone who has harmed you in the past. They have a kind look on their face now. And they say to you, I apologize for harming you in the past. Please forgive me. And you say to them, thank you for apologizing for the harm you brought to me in the past. I do forgive you. We are now both free to move forward in our lives without carrying any negativities around in our mind. So now you can let go of this part of the visualization, of the forgiveness meditation. If you practice this by yourself, just do it for a little bit longer. Now we switch techniques to loving kindness. Sitting with yourself, extend the loving kindness to yourself. Fill your whole being with the universal loving kindness in the form of the white light. Fill your whole being with this white light that is representative of loving kindness, universal loving kindness, beyond limit. Fill yourself with so much loving kindness that it now radiates or overflows and radiates outwards. Initially to your loved ones, family and friends, and fills them with the universal loving kindness in the form of the white light too. So the white light still filling your body, your being, radiates outwards from your heart center and enters into their heart centers, filling them with the universal loving kindness. Now also include those you're indifferent towards, may regard as strangers. Extend this loving kindness to them as well. And also to those you find difficult, may regard as enemies. Radiating the loving kindness from your heart center to all of these people, filling them with the white light. So now we'll start to radiate this loving kindness out further and further distance-wise, initially starting around your immediate area to all living beings now, not just the people. All the sentient beings, whether weak or strong, great or small, short or tall, seen or unseen, near or distant, born or to be born. May they all be happy, free from suffering, and be peaceful. Fill them with the universal love and kindness. The beings that live in the waters, on the land, through the air, whether born from wombs, eggs, moisture, or through transformation. Now let's gradually radiate further and further distance-wise. Radiate this universal love and kindness throughout your whole state to all of the beings. Throughout all of the states throughout your country. All of the countries throughout this world. Those that you're familiar with and have an affinity towards. Those you're indifferent towards, don't really think about. And those that for whatever reason you may have some negative feelings towards. Extending this loving kindness to all of the living beings throughout these countries as well as all of nature. And also throughout all of the oceans and other waterways, such as rivers and lakes, all the way down to the core of the earth and to the outermost atmosphere. And beyond this planet alone, throughout the whole solar system. And all of the solar systems throughout the galaxy. And all of the galaxies throughout the universe. And have your loving kindness pervade throughout infinite space, beyond limitation, immeasurable, innumerable, unthinkable, inexpressible, radiating this loving kindness that is generated initially in your own mind or heart. So now rejoice. And let's do the dedication prayer. Due to this merit, may I soon attain the enlightened state of the Buddha, so that I may be able to liberate all sentient beings from their suffering. May the precious Bodhicitta, not yet born, arise and grow. May that born have no decline, but increase forevermore. And may the precious view of Shunyata, not yet born, arise and grow. May that born have no decline, but increase forevermore. Namo Buddhaya, Namo Dharmaya, Namo Sanghaya. So first of all, Leanne did send me a text message before saying she doesn't think that it will affect the time of the class, that we should be going for almost the 40 minutes. So just be aware of that. But if I do get cut off, if Zoom are unfriendly to us today, then and cut me off early, finish sort of on the 40 minutes to the scheduled time, then bad luck. I say to you, I rejoice in your goodness now in case that happens. I rejoice in your Dharma studies, your Dharma practice, your Dharma sharing. Rejoice in your meritorious goodness. And also, I'll share with you that Ahmed said he apologizes that his camera is not working today. Okay, so you can't see him. And I noticed that actually on the screen just here earlier. So we're going to continue with this article, Negativity in the Bud. We got through about almost a third of it last week, so we'll probably finish it up next week, I'd say. There's one other thing I'd like to say before we start, and that is I know that we did for quite some time there, we were doing what I nicknamed show and tell, where I was showing you some Dharma objects and things like that. And I said that the next lot of show and tell will be me showing around the house and showing you many different Buddha images, tankas, and so forth throughout the house. Well, I can't do that at present because unfortunately, about a week and a half ago, some screws popped out of my laptop. So as you can see, the laptop is still working fine, but I can't close it. Or if I closed it, it might make it worse. So I don't want to be, carrying it around like that. The only way I could do that is if I use the iPhone, which doesn't give as good a sound, I've noticed over time. So yeah, right at the corner there, sort of popped out. I couldn't believe it. I was sitting downstairs on my lap because it's a laptop, so I thought, oh, my lap's fine. But maybe over the last, 4.5 to 5 years that I've had it, maybe I've been a little bit of a bloke and been a little bit rough with it on occasions, not taking care of it well enough. So I will have to get a new laptop at some stage. But at present, it means I can't bring it downstairs, or I shouldn't. I shouldn't move it. So I'm just keeping it stationary and using it mainly for the class and for some other things like cleaning the computer and whatnot. On the inside, I mean, so on the internet and so on. So I thought I'd share that with you. So no show and tell, or if you do see show and tell, it means I have my new laptop or I'm using my iPhone. That's all. So, as I like to say often, uncomplicated, very simple. We can make life like that, uncomplicated, simple. Human beings, we tend to complicate so many things. Maybe you can say the animals are better than us in that case because they live more simply, more instinctively, less complications maybe. Or maybe not. I don't know. I can't read their minds. Okay, so I'll read to you up to where we had commentary on last week. So this is Negativity in the Bud. Actually, two articles put together. Anger only ever causes suffering. We should eradicate it whenever it arises, just as we don't hang on to rain when the sun comes out. All things pass. Replace anger with acceptance, patience, appreciation, and loving kindness. We should do our very best to protect our mind by enthusiastically practicing the four great efforts as taught by the Buddha, to eradicate any unwholesome thoughts that have already arisen, to stop any new unwholesome thoughts from arising, to give rise to wholesome thoughts, and to maintain wholesome thoughts that have already arisen. The Buddha said, with sustained effort and sincerity, discipline and self-control, the wise become like islands which no flood can overwhelm. And so we'll continue today. I'll just read to you and then I'll stop wherever I feel I need to stop. And then we'll have commentary on it. When mental sensations and thoughts arise, don't cling to them or follow them or turn them into something bigger than they are, for they are simply conditioned habitual tendencies. Be proactive and nip them in the bud by just letting them go naturally, rather than being reactive, reacting to them and then reacting to the reaction, and so on and so forth. So it's similar to when I give the commentary, or not, or the instruction for meditation, the breath meditation. Don't cling to the thoughts. Mental activity arises, don't cling to it. Don't start telling yourself stories. But what I'm meaning here is specifically is the mental afflictions, our habitual tendencies. Our habitual tendency, for instance, to get angry during certain circumstances, or if we experience certain things in our lives. or getting greedy because we have attachment to something, having some sort of hatred or dislike or whatever if we don't like something and it comes into our lives. We have these habits, habitual tendencies that we've reinforced over many lifetimes, over and over and over again. So we should not hang on to these. Whenever we recognize they arise, just like giving up the negative thoughts that I mentioned in the previous paragraph, or 2 paragraphs ago, don't hang on to them, don't cling to them. Recognize them when they arise and go, aha, there's that old habit. I'm not going to hang on to this. I'm going to be kind to myself, and I'm going to persevere enthusiastically to be able to change this habit, to first of all replace this habit with a more healthy habit, wholesome state of mind, so and so on. But eventually create the conditions for my mind to be able to realize the supreme wisdom, to develop compassion beyond limit, unify them, perfect them, realize the relative bodhicitta and the ultimate bodhicitta, working your way towards enlightenment and not hanging on to merits. Always dedicate them to others as well as to enlightenment. Remember that when you benefit others, you're also benefiting yourself. As you benefit yourself, you benefit others. Okay. So when mental sensations and thoughts arise, don't cling to them or follow them or turn them into something bigger than they are, like telling yourself stories while meditating. Having a thought of, oh, okay, what am I going to have for dinner? Maybe I'll have this for dinner. And then all of a sudden your mind is organizing the ingredients and organizing what pan you're going to use. And then maybe even imagining the taste after you've cooked it or prepared it. And then all of a sudden you realize, oh, I'm supposed to be meditating on my breath. Why am I planning for dinner? But if you do that, or something like that, I'm using humor here, but if you do something like that, then don't worry. Just at that moment, go back to the breath. Or in this case, have a more wholesome attitude, replace the unwholesome with the wholesome. Be more proactive mentally rather than reactive. So, I'll repeat, when mental sensations and thoughts arise, don't cling to them or follow them or turn them into something bigger than they are, for they are simply conditioned habitual tendencies. Like I said, excuse me, conditioned over many, many lifetimes, reinforced. I'll use the same example as previously, like a knot. The more you tie a knot, I don't know if I have any knots around here. Maybe not. Excuse me, my humor and semantic. Anyway, no, I don't have any knots, but use your imagination. Okay, so tie a knot. Okay, normally, if you haven't pulled it too tight, easy to undo. But if you pull it too tight, harder to undo. Then if you reinforce some more knots on top of each other, harder to undo. And the tighter those knots, the more reinforced the habit, in other words, the more difficult it is to first of all recognize it and then to release it. Because so often, just like these knots, eventually it becomes normal. If you don't fix it, then you think, oh, that's just the way it is. Maybe it's your runners or your shoes of some sort, and now you can't put your shoes on because the knot's tied too tight. So now you just put the shoes in the cupboard. think the problem goes away, but it doesn't. Excuse me. And so we need to undo these things because it doesn't go away. Once again, I'll use the same example, just like the fire behind you. If you don't address it, face it, put it out, then it's going to get worse. So these mental afflictions will continue to reinforce themselves. That's like why we say that, back to the Buddha as well, that if you're not moving forward on the Dharma path, then you're actually going backwards. Because just like if, for instance, my phone here, if I leave it like that for weeks and weeks and weeks, dust forms. Eventually, if I leave it for years, maybe it doesn't even look like a mobile phone anymore. Just a big sort of bunch of fluff or dust. Okay, so um, I think I've given enough example there, enough commentary on that. So, see, things keep coming up on my screen. It doesn't matter. Be proactive and nip them in the bud by just letting them go naturally. Like I said, sometimes you have to work harder at it. Other times, maybe it's much easier. Then you create the momentum of doing so. It becomes more natural for you to do so. And then eventually you can really purify these negativities. To become positive to begin with, eventually no attachment, no aversion, no ignorance. By letting them go naturally rather than being reactive, reacting to them and then reacting to the reaction and so on and so forth. Think about when we do that. I mean, it's so often in our lives, isn't it? We're reacting to something, whether it's positive, negative, or indifferent, still reacting, and then you react to that, then you react to that. But if we can actually stop at the first thought or the first perception or recognition, then we can not give in to it, not tell ourselves stories, make up films and stories in our mind that are not conducive to enlightenment, okay? Or to concentration, actually. For instance, if we let the weeds in the garden grow, unrestrained and uncontrolled, the size and amount of the weeds continually increase and become overwhelming. How often have we done that? And even sometimes it gets so bad you need professional people to come and do it for you because they have the machinery, the equipment. I tend to do things manually. Even though we do have some equipment, I try to do things manually because then you're not creating pollution and it's maybe better for the living creatures that are around, so forth. Okay, but sometimes you have to. And of course, it's got beyond like it's overwhelming sometimes for me out there. And then it becomes so difficult. And you spend hours upon hours, just pulling out little weeds, you know. And anyway, done that recently. But the last month has been good. I've got on top of it. Anyway, that's the example. Likewise, if our thoughts and feelings are left to grow unrestrained and uncontrolled, they will intensify and eventually become overwhelming. So much so that we may not even recognize it. So much, let's say negativities, they may grow so much or be reinforced so much that you think it's just part of your character. Many people are like this. They think, this is just the way I am. I can't change. And then they're clinging to the cause of their suffering, but not even realizing that. Or, for instance, if somebody engages in really harmful mental activity and then follows through with physical actions, verbal actions, maybe killing, and then it becomes such a habit to do so that you think it's normal. You think it's your right to kill other beings, but not even thinking about it. Or if you are thinking about it, maybe taking pleasure in it, unfortunately. So we have to be careful of that. I know that you guys are nowhere near that, but I want to give you the extreme example there. And maybe you can share these types of examples with others as well. Not to offend anyone, but to help them be more wholesome and so on. We experience the world through our senses, which gives rise to mental sensations or feelings, which are either pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. We then recognize or perceive these sensations and normally then impulsively react, which in turn leaves a karmic imprint on our consciousness. So this is an example in a way of how the five skandhas work. So I'm mentioning the five skandhas there. Our physicality or form, the feelings or the mental sensations, perception, or the first thought, as I mentioned before, a recognition, noting, then the impulsive mental reactions, which, to remind you, they have two parts. There's from the past, which is our habitual tendencies that we've carried from the past to now, through infinite lifetimes to now. And so the past conditioning this moment, but then there is this element of in the present, the intention, the volition. And of course, at that moment, you create the karma. So you may be reinforcing the habits from the past in this moment, and then even adding to them, creating more karma, and then leaving an imprint on the consciousness. Now, I spent, I think maybe about 8 weeks on the 5 skandhas, going back about, it's almost 4 years ago now, really. Not quite, but so if you want to have a look on the YouTube channel, you can have a look at some of the commentary. But I will explain a little bit more of this now, if I have the time, and also for next week as well. So what I will do is I will just read it to you. If I get cut off, that's live. And then I'll add a bit if we're still continuing, okay? Because I know it's now 3 minutes overtime from when we would normally finish. So I will repeat that. We experience the world through our senses, which gives rise to mental sensations or feelings, which are either pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. We then recognize or perceive these sensations and normally then impulsively react, which in turn leaves a karmic imprint on our consciousness. We should create what I like to call a buffer zone between the perception of the sensation and the impulsive reaction. In other words, allow ourselves the opportunity to not impulsively react. In this way, we can protect ourselves from creating the negative karma. So we can also perceive not just the sensation, sometimes you can put it slightly in a different order from the contact you have with your senses or sense door to the sense object or objects. Then you can perceive that, then that can give rise to the feeling, pleasant, unpleasant, neutral, and then impulsively react to that. Just to remind you, this is all happening really at the same time. We put it in an order, but really, unless you create a buffer zone, it tends to go boop, 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 back to back, creating karma, create karma all the time, unless we avoid creating the karma. So, to give a brief example, if we bump our head on something hard, generally the sensation we experience would be unpleasant. We then perceive this unpleasant sensation and impulsively react with frustration or even fully blown anger, which in turn leaves a negative karmic imprint on our consciousness. However, if we create this buffer zone between our perception of the unpleasant feeling and our impulsive reaction, we will avoid creating the negative karma. So I say with a little bit of humor, enjoy your buffer zone, just as much as you would enjoy your dinner or breakfast that you're going to have, depending on what time it is. Nip negativity in the bud before it becomes overwhelming. So like I said, I will give a little bit more commentary on the 5 skandhas next week, and then we'll finish that up before moving on to the next